Hi, my wife had a difficult cancer for 3 years and passed away in 2012 when our kids were toddlers. I wanted to share from what we learned and what led her to say it was the hardest but most beautiful experience of her life. So I've made videos in these topic threads behind me, which you can skip around. For more on our story, you can watch the video on our background. This video is in the thread on parenting. In this video, I'm going to give you some suggestions about parenting during traumatic times. Right away, I need to say that your kids can be okay through this, and in fact, studies suggest that they probably will be okay. That's a hard idea to hold on to during trauma, but I'll say it now, explain some, and say it again. I'm going to do this video in 2 parts. In part A, I'll give some context about growth and strength, and an analogy about stress. Then I'll describe why honesty and updates can be more helpful for kids than being kept in the dark. I'll then lay out a number of points to communicate, and give examples of the first 3 points, what we actually said to our daughters. I'll stop this video around the 6-minute mark. Then, in a separate part B, I'll give a couple more examples of what we said. I'll go even a bit further into scripts for how to help kids deal with the anger, embarrassment, resentment, and loneliness they might feel. But it's also important to give them the okay to have fun in their life, and to give them a few goals that they can keep an eye on to remain balanced. I'll then close and pick up other topics in other videos. Being a parent during a time of traumatic news is difficult, but it's also a time when your role as a parent and your children's growth might really be remarkable. Or their character strength may be annealed during this time. They might not show it immediately, but you might realize years later that they have their feet on the ground due to this experience and all of the adjustments that it brings about in the weeks, months, and years that follow. Being a parent during traumatic times doesn't mean that you have to be a superhero, jetting about and never feeling down. In fact, it means that you can get in touch with what's going on, how it's impacting you, whether you're fired up or not, and use whatever your reaction is to speak with your kids. Just by doing this, you can teach them lasting lessons by example, not just give them theoretical lectures. Afterwards, they go into the future with emotional skills to cope with big challenges. Here's a quick analogy, and you can see this all around you wherever you are. Tall trees need to grow up being exposed to the force of the wind throughout their lives, gusts of air pushing them over. This force on them causes the cells and cellular bonds in their trunks to grow stronger. If trees don't experience this stress, their trunks don't develop strength, and sometimes they can't even support their own weight of their upper branches. This is also why young trees that you plant come with stakes for support, and why you cut the stakes down lower and lower each year, letting the trunk stand against the wind by itself and building the strength to stand alone. The most commonly cited principle and advice to parents during a trauma is that you communicate honestly with your kids, although in an age-appropriate way. You know anecdotes about how kids blame themselves for parents getting divorced? Well, they also construct stories where they caused the trauma or even the cancer because they did something bad and the family is being punished. It's not logical, but it's common. Young kids don't understand cause and effect, so they can't separate what makes sense and what doesn't. And if you think about how guilt can grow from a desire to feel some control over a scary situation, you can see that even adults mix in some magical thinking about their role and fault with what has happened. Even very young children, like older children and your adult peers, can pick up on facial expressions and body language and realize that something has changed. So you want to be upfront with them and give them information about what's going on. And kind of like community updates, you don't need to share every bit of information. You give them enough to understand and manage expectations and hope without contradicting the facts of what you're actually dealing with. Here's the overview of how you do it, starting with talking to even very small kids. Our twin girls were 2 when my wife's cancer and treatment started, and 4 when it got really bad. I know how strange and intimidating this can seem, but I can also speak from experience that it can all go really well. Number 1. Name the stress using exact and accurate language. We said, "Mommy has a sickness called cancer. It's different from how you get sick because it's a disease and we need special doctors for the cancer." 2. Stop their magical thinking before it starts. Emphasize that nothing they did caused this and that they are not responsible for fixing it. Repeat this 2 and 3 times to make sure they understand. 3. Explain what might change about their day-to-day routine. Just start with the most immediate changes. 4. Pause on the global point that there is reason to hope that everything will be okay, and promise to check in with an update in the next week or 2. 5. Tell them who will be here today, tomorrow, and next week to help maintain the routine. 6. Assure them that someone will always take care of them and name them. 7. Assure them that their help is meaningful and appreciated. Give them examples like getting you a glass of water or doing dishes. This helps them feel like there's something that they can contribute to. 8. Tell them you are always available to talk more or for their questions and concerns. To be honest, those 8 points seemed like a lot to remember, so we wrote things down in a script and we were very exacting with the language. That's a picture of one of our scripts, which we kept on one page. For example, for point 1, 1, we said, Mommy has a disease called cancer. It's a disease which is different from getting sick like we all do. Cancer is when a tiny cell in her body makes a mistake and replicates even though they're not supposed to, and then they get in the way of the rest of her body. Notice that I said replicate, and I then told my daughters a little about cells, and that it meant that cells divided and then divided again and again, so that one cancer cell became 2, 4, 8, and 16. I consciously chose not to say grow, because as kids they will hear about how they're growing and getting bigger. I wanted to have separated, specialized, and accurate language so they didn't overlap and worry in secret that their bodies were sick because they were growing. Yes, it was a new word to them, but it's easy enough to give kids a new word and explain the definition, and it's even better if it doesn't overlap with words they hear elsewhere. For point 2, we said, you did not give this to Mommy. You can't catch it from Mommy. No one can. Cancer doesn't come from germs like some other sicknesses, and nothing you did caused any of the sickness. Nothing you can do in the future will make it worse. For teens, you can use more advanced language, but the principles are the same, stressing that no one caused it, nor can anyone cure it by our own actions. For point 3, to explain disruptions to routine, we said, we'll be seeing a lot of doctors who will try to help Mommy get better, so maybe friends and sitters will be here more. Mommy might also feel sick and need to rest more, and maybe some things on the outside might change, like her hair. But what matters is what's on the inside, and she will still love you and be your mommy, and you can still read stories with her and have fun times with her. So we tried to reassure the nice things that they could continue to share. This has been about 5.5 minutes, and I want these videos to be short, so I'll cut this into 2 parts and close this video here. In the part 2 video, I'll give examples for points 4 and beyond, including some points about kids' anger and kids' fun that I think are important to be open about as well. See you in another video.